Lamassu, Lama, Lama or Lamassu Cuneiform, an.kal, Sumerian, dlammař, later in Akkadian, Lamassu, sometimes called a lamassus, is an Assyrian protective deity. Initially depicted as a goddess in Sumerian times, when it was called Lama, it was later depicted from Assyrian times as a hybrid of a human bird and either a bull or lion, specifically having a human head, the body of a bull or a lion, and bird wings under the name Lamassu. In some writings it is portrayed to represent a goddess. A less frequently used name is shedu cuneiform, an.kal, Sumerian dalad, Akkadian shedu, which refers to the male counterpart of a lamassu. Lamassu represent the zodiacs, parent stars or constellations. Goddess Lama. The goddess Lama appears initially as a mediating goddess who precedes the orants and presents them to the deities. The protective deity is clearly labeled as Lama in a cassette stele unearthed at Uruk in the temple of Ishtar, goddess to which she had been dedicated by King Natsi-Marratesh 1307–1282 BC. It is a goddess wearing a ruffled dress and wearing a horned tiara symbolizing the deity, with two hands raised in sign of prayer. A. Spikett proposed that similar female figures appearing in particular in glyptics and statuary from the Akkadian period, and in particular in the presentation scenes common, especially in the Paleo-Babylonian era, were to be considered as Lamma. This opinion is commonly followed, and in artistic terminology these female figures are generally referred to as Lamma. From Assyrian times, Lamma becomes a hybrid deity, half animal, half human. Iconography. From Assyrian times, lamassu were depicted as hybrids, with bodies of either winged bulls or lions and heads of human males. The motif of a winged animal with a human head is common to the Near East, first recorded in Ebla around 3000 BC. The first distinct lamassu motif appeared in Assyria during the reign of Tiglath-Pileser Roman II as a symbol of power. Assyrian sculpture typically placed prominent pairs of lamassu at entrances in palaces, facing the street and also internal courtyards. They were represented as double-aspect figures on corners, in high relief. From the front they appear to stand, and from the side walk, and in earlier versions have 5 legs, as is apparent when viewed obliquely. Lamassi do not generally appear as large figures in the low-relief schemes running round palace rooms where winged genie figures are common, but they sometimes appear within narrative reliefs, apparently protecting the Assyrians. The colossal entrance figures were often followed by a hero grasping a wriggling lion, also colossal in scale and in high relief. In the palace of Sargon Roman II at Dur Sharukin, a group of at least 7 lamassu and 2 such heroes with lions surrounded the entrance to the throne room, a concentration of figures which produced an overwhelming impression of power. They also appear on cylinder seals. Notable examples include those at the Gate of All Nations at Persepolis in Iran, the British Museum in London, the Louvre in Paris, the National Museum of Iraq in Baghdad, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and the University of Chicago Oriental Institute. Several examples left in situ in northern Iraq were destroyed in the 2010s by the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant when they occupied the area, as were those in the Mosul Museum. Terminology. Lamassu represent the zodiacs, parent stars, or constellations. They are depicted as protective deities because they encompass all life within them. In the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, they are depicted as physical deities as well, which is where the lamassu iconography originates. These deities could be microcosms of their microcosmic zodiac, parent star, or constellation. Although lamassu had a different iconography and portrayal in the culture of Sumer, the terms lamassu, dalad, and shedu evolved throughout the Assyro-Akkadian culture, from the Sumerian culture to denote the Assyrian winged man-bull symbol and statues during the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Eventually, female lamassu were identified as apsassu. The motif of the Assyrian winged man bull called Lammu and Lamassu interchangeably is not the Lamassu or Alad of Sumerian origin, which were depicted with different iconography. These monumental statues were called Lammu or Lamassu, which meant protective spirit. In Hittite, the Sumerian form Lamma is used both as a name for the so-called tutelary deity identified in certain later texts with the goddess Inara and a title given to similar protective deities. Mythology. The Lamassu is a celestial being from ancient Mesopotamian religion bearing a human head, bull's body, sometimes with the horns and the ears of a bull, and wings. It appears frequently in Mesopotamian art. The Lamassu and shedu were household protective spirits of the common Assyrian people, becoming associated later as royal protectors, and were placed as sentinels at entrances. The Akkadians associated the god Papsukal with a Lamassu and the god Isam with shedu. To protect houses, the Lamassu were engraved in clay tablets, which were then buried under the door's threshold. They were often placed as a pair at the entrance of palaces. At the entrance of cities, they were sculpted in colossal size and placed as a pair one at each side of the door of the city, that generally had doors in the surrounding wall, each one looking toward one of the cardinal points. The ancient Jewish people were influenced by the iconography of Assyrian culture. The prophet Ezekiel wrote about a fantastic being called a cherub made up of aspects of a human being, a lion, an eagle, and a bull. Later, in the early Christian period, the four Gospels were ascribed to each of these components. When it was depicted in art, this image was called the tetramorph. In modern culture, the British 10th Army, which operated in Iraq and Iran in 1942–1943, adopted the lamassu as its insignia. A bearded man with a winged bull body appears on the logo of the United States Forces Iraq. A man with a bull's body is found among the creatures that make up Aslan's army in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. He appears at the stone table, challenging the White Witch with a great bellowing voice. In the film Alexander 2004, lamassu are seen at the Ishtar Gate in Babylon. In the Disney movie Aladdin 1992, a gold lamassu can be found in the scene where Aladdin and Abu enter the cave in the desert to find the lamp. And, in the Star Wars prequel, Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones, Lamassu is the name of the Kaminoan cloner who tells Obi-Wan Kenobi about Jango Fett being the clone army's template. Michael Rakovitz, a Northwestern University professor of art theory and practice, won a fourth plinth commission to recreate the lamassu that stood in Nineveh, Iraq, from 700 BC until it was destroyed by ISIS in 2015. Rakovitz's sculpture will be displayed in London's Trafalgar Square beginning in 2018. Games. Lamassu and shedu are two distinct types of good-aligned creatures in the role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons, with Lamassu having the bodies of winged lions and shedu depicted as human-headed winged bulls. Lamassu appear in the Magic: The Gathering trading card game as the white card-hunted Lamassu in the Ravnica expansion, as well as the white card venerable Lamassu found in the Khans of Tarkir expansion. In the Games Workshop Miniatures War game, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, the Lamassu was a mount for the Chaos Dwarf army. It has since returned as part of the Storm of Magic expansion release. A Lamassu briefly appears in the Fablehaven series. In the video game Heroes of Might and Magic VI, the Lamassu is a recruitable elite creature of the Necropolis faction undead. Lamassu is an enemy in the Neo-Babylon levels of Spelunky 2 and in the Neo-Babylon level set in the Cosmic Ocean section. Lamassu appears in Axiom Verge 2 as a godly machine designed to protect against interlopers. Gallery. General references. Frankfurt, Henry, The Art and Architecture of the Ancient Orient, Pelican History of Art, 4th ed. 1970, Penguin Now Yale History of Art, ISBN 140561072,